Okay, perfect. So hello everyone, happy Friday. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. In today's training, Harish Bagha, a water resource control engineer from the Safe and Affordable Drinking Water Unit here at DFA, will be walking us through the greenhouse gas reduction, also known as GGRF reporting. And Harish, do you mind sharing your screen for the presentation?
It should already be sharing. Can you guys see it?
Don't see it on my end.
Okay. Technical difficulties. Let me try again.
Okay.
Yep, this was about to happen. Can you guys see it now?
On my end, it says Harish has started sharing screen. I don't see the presentation yet.
Give me a minute. Let me reopen it.
Got it.
How about now?
We see your whole screen.
Okay.
So from beginning. Okay, now we see the whole presentation. Does that look good on your end too?
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so if we can just go to the next slide, please. Okay, thank you. So yeah, just before we begin the training, just wanted to remind you about some meeting logistics. And please note we're going to save questions until the very end of the presentation. But there are two ways to ask questions. One is raising your hand, and the second option is to type your question in the chat box.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Harish Bagha, and I'll be presenting on the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund reporting requirements. This is required for all projects funded by the Safe and Affordable Drinking Water Fund, aka Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. So some of the topics we'll be covering here today are the funding source and the purpose, reporting cycle and reporting requirements, project type and specific reporting, ongoing reporting, actual job reporting, and some reference documents that we could share at the end. So in short, please note that we'll be throughout the presentation we'll be using California Air Resources Board as CARB. As you may already know, the Safe and Affordable Drinking Water Fund was set up by Senate Bill 200. This bill requires a transfer of up to $130 million of annual proceeds from the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund into the Safe and Affordable Drinking Water Fund. Like most funding sources, this funding comes with some key requirements to fund projects. The funding is intended for projects that facilitate reduction of greenhouse gas emissions or improve climate change adaptation and resilience to the priority population, also known as disadvantaged communities, low-income communities, and low-income households. These projects also need to provide a benefit to those priority populations. So here's a small snippet of the purpose of the California Climate Investment Initiative, which says California Climate Investment is a statewide initiative that puts billions of cap and dollar trade to work to reduce greenhouse emissions, strengthening the economy, improving public health and the environment, and providing benefit to the residents of disadvantaged communities, low-income communities, and low-income households, which are collectively referred to as the priority population. There are 3 key milestones for reporting. The first major milestone is the project being awarded. In DFA terms, that is, when the project is executed or the TA agreement is executed with the State Water Board. The second key milestone is the project being implemented. So projects are considered implemented when they have a known location of implementation so that we can identify a particular party population benefiting from that project or a TA program. TA and interim water replacement projects they're not considered implemented until all of those implementation locations are known. The last milestone is the project completion. Some projects will be selected for long-term reporting. The State Water Board will notify grant recipients and TA providers if their project is selected for that ongoing reporting on a long-term basis. So the Safe and Affordable Drinking Water Fund's reporting requirements are outlined in the funding guidelines prepared by CARB. These guidelines can be accessed by clicking on the 2018 funding guidelines hyperlinked in the presentation we might have shared with you guys already. I'm not sure yet, but we will share this presentation, and you guys could click on that, CCI 2018 funding guidelines to access those guidelines developed by CARB for these funds. There are 2 major reporting cycles. The first half of the reporting cycle covers December 1st through May 31st, and reporting to us is due by June 15th, covering that period. The second half of the reporting cycle covers June 1st through November 30th, with reporting due by December 15th annually. So the data is submitted to us twice a year, and also to CARB twice a year as well. Some of the projects that have been funded by State Water Board include planning projects, construction, interim replacement water projects, technical assistance such as yours, O&M projects, and administrators. Please note that there is a short turnaround time, as you could see from the schedule, to report to CARB. So we encourage that the requested data be collected on a timely manner. We will cover the reporting requirements on the following slides. So there's some initial reporting that gets completed by your project manager when the project's executed, and that covers the project description, budget, model the jobs, and then identification of the benefiting priority population. And the second piece there is the ongoing reporting, which which is a little different for technical assistance projects and then interim replacement projects, but they have a lot of things in common. So these so the ongoing reporting includes, GHG Emission Calculator tool, your jobs reporting, which are actual jobs supported by the project. We will cover, specifically the GHG emissions and then jobs later in the slides, but next we'll cover the specific ongoing reporting for all the TA/interim replacement projects. So here's a summary of these ongoing reporting requirements for interim and TA projects. The first one there is the total funding approved in the reporting cycle. Your State Water Board project manager will track and report that each reporting cycle to us. However, you guys are required to track and report the remainder of the ongoing reporting that's listed here. So the first one there is community engagement, which you'll estimate using the community engagement questionnaire, which is developed by CARB, and it's based on tracking the extent and impact of public participation in project planning, design, and implementation, the assessment evaluation of quantity and quality and equity of community engagement. To ensure the community engagement, the UTA providers will respond to 5 questions that are listed on this questionnaire, and based on those responses, you can figure out what the community engagement is for that project. The next item on there is the public meetings. So you guys are required to track public meetings that are held for this project. This includes any outreach meetings or public meeting, which is public facing. So meetings that are project specific would just key team holders. They're not required to be tracked. Only the meetings that are public facing. The next item on there is number of education events, if any. If the funding agreement requires that education events be held, you need to report on those how many meetings were conducted in that reporting cycle. Next item there is the priority population and GIS locations. For TA and interim replacement projects, it's important to track all of the locations where projects being implemented. We generally need the GIS locations, latitude and longitude. If that data, I would say if that data is not being tracked currently, I would, recommend that you guys put something in place that you're collecting the latitude and longitude of each of the implemented locations for your projects. Next one on there is the qualifying low-income household count per reporting cycle. So if you're making an MHI determination based on a household level, we would need how many households were approved based on the MHI level. If the MHI is done on a community level, we necessarily don't need the household count, but for the households that had MHI checked, we need how many households were approved based on their MHI. For interim replacement projects, there's the highlighted, red there for gallons of bottled water provided. If you're in an interim replacement project, make sure, you're tracking how much water was provided to the community, and we will be requesting that information from you guys. The last one there is grant application assisted. So this will be more for TA projects. So any, we need the number of any work plans completed. If there were any work plans completed, make sure you guys are tracking that as well. So your State Water Board project manager will contact you at the end of each reporting cycle to request the needed information. If they don't have that information available, a special note there is, if no greenhouse gas reduction fund money has been approved for reimbursement, then the ongoing reporting can be skipped for the reporting cycle. So sometimes, we have, projects executed and late in the reporting cycle, and there have been no invoices submitted yet. So there's nothing to report because we haven't paid out anything in terms of money. So we could skip that reporting cycle, but the following cycle we would request that same information and make sure you guys are tracking that on that level. If your projects have receiving GGR funds, they're required that the projects if they have any GHG impacts, greenhouse gas reduction impacts, those impacts must be estimated and reporting to using the CARB-built GHG Benefit Calculator tool. In general, project types that result in GHG emission increases are bottled water projects, hauled water projects, and projects that decrease GHG emissions include pump replacement, energy efficiency, retrofits, or solar PV. So that's, there might be other components that reduce or increase GHG emissions, but at this time, the tools is only able to calculate GHG impacts for these categories that I mentioned earlier: bottled water, hot water, pump replacement, solar energy, and then energy efficiency retrofits. That tool can be accessed clicking on that, CARBs, going to the CARBs website and clicking, downloading the tool under the State Water Board SAPER program. So this is the snippet of the GHG emission tool. It is an Excel workbook with preloaded formulas to estimate the GHG impacts. Note that at this time, only on the tabs on the bottom, you will only see pump replacement, solar, energy efficiency inputs, and interim water delivery. If there are other components that you might identify in your program that, it's increasing GHGs or reducing GHGs, especially if it's reducing GHGs, please let your State Water Board project manager know, and then we could, work through with CARB to, update this tool so we could capture additional GHG impacts if there are any. So if the note there says, if your TA program is initially determined to have no GHG impact, so at the time a project's executed, so if it's mainly a planning project, then the tool is not required to be completed. So you could work with your State Water Board PM to determine if this applies to your TA program. The next portion of this reporting is the jobs reporting. So this is actual jobs that are supported by this program. So the jobs reporting is required annually, which is a little different from the ongoing reporting. So we report on jobs once a year by December 15th. And they have to meet the following criteria. So a total project cost greater than 1 million. That includes GGRF money plus matching if there's any, or the project is providing a job training and a workforce benefit, and projects that have approved invoices in the reporting period. For example, if no money has been reimbursed, then actual job reporting is not required for that year. Otherwise, if they meet these criteria, they're required to report on jobs for all projects. There is exemptions for subcontracts slash, we could say that slash work plans that are less than $100,000. So they're not required to be included in the jobs reporting. We'll cover this in more detail on the next slide. So this figure kind of represents, a flow chart of from a grant being executed, and then saying which subcontractors are required to report and which are not. So the blue shaded circle and rectangles there are required to report, and then the gray shaded are not required to report. So if your program is 5 million, let's say a program has 5 million awarded monies from the GGR funds, so that awardee or TA provider is required to report jobs. And that TA provider has a work plan that is greater than 200 or greater than, let's say 100,000. So that's a subcontractor slash work plan. They're required to report on jobs, and any subcontractors they might have under that work plan, they're also required to report on jobs as well. But if it's under, that work plan is under 100,000 K, then they're not required to report on jobs. Another option there is a subcontractor C. So sometimes you might have work plans with the same subcontractor or the same engineer firm. Then they're not required to report on jobs if they're less than 100K. Even though you could see here 60 plus 60, that's a 120K. As long as they're separate contracts, so it's based on contracts, not the total money that's been to a subcontractor. So that's option C there. So this is kind of what the actual jobs reporting template looks like. Some of the requested information on there is the project ID, job classification, job education required, job experience required. So these are all drop-down menus, which makes it a little easier to fill out. So this is an example. One of the most of the request information is pretty simple, self-explanatory, but we do get some questions on the projected work hours for the priority population. So this is determined to determine if the employee worker is located in a priority population. To determine if an employee is in a priority population area, you would need to use the map located at CARB's webpage. You could access by clicking at the link on your presentation or doing a simple Google search with these terms that are on your screen. California Climate Investment Priority Population Map. This map shows disadvantaged communities and low-income communities as defined by CARB's funding guidelines. To determine if a particular employee is located within a disadvantaged community or low-income community, you would enter or navigate, the search bar there to enter their address or cross-street address, or if you know a general area they live in, you can determine their priority population status that way. So this kind of wraps up the jobs reporting aspect. And we do get some, generally get some questions. I wanted to cover some common questions we get for for jobs and TA providers. So the first one there is, somebody asked for a technical assistant / bottled water program. When does reporting start on the jobs? Some of the TA programs have funding agreements for over $1 million, but since we are usually providing a TA to small communities, there might not be contracts over 100,000. Or it might take a while for a contract to execute that is more than $100,000. In this case, of no contract over 100K, when do we start reporting on jobs? Would it be just report on jobs for the TA providers? So there's the exemption we talked about earlier. So for any work plans that are less than $100,000, they're not required to report on jobs. But eventually, if they do hit that 100,000 milestone down the line, for some reason the budget increases, then yeah, at that time you're required to track jobs for the work plan or the subcontract. So yeah, if there are no currently approved in work plans that exceed 100,000K, then the jobs data just for the TA providers would satisfy the jobs reporting requirements. So again, if the TA providers are still required to report on their jobs, even if they don't have any work plans that are exceeding 100K. Some other common questions we receive are, what if there hasn't been any invoices submitted? In that case, job reporting is not required since no invoices have been submitted and approved by the State Water Board. Do we report on jobs or projects that don't provide a benefit to the priority population? Yes, job reporting is encouraged for even if there's no priority population identified. For the priority population determination, do we need to use the worker's location? So we get a lot of questions, sensitive information that you guys might not want to use, the home addresses of employees, but we encourage that at least you could base that determination on the cross streets, not necessarily you wouldn't necessarily need home addresses for employees. It's sensitive information. So where does all this information go? So this altogether information is entered into the CARB's investment project map, which is on the left there. This map shows project level information on California climate investment using cap and trade auction proceeds. These projects are a subset of a larger and coordinated effort to make climate and energy investment throughout California that furthers the state's climate goals. Users can filter project by GGRF programs and access information on agency administering GGR programs. Also, this information gets captured in the CARB's developed annual report to the legislature, which kind of captures, lots of programs that are, GGR funded. If you do get a chance, do scroll through the report. It does have a lot of good stories and good projects that have been implemented that reduce GHG impacts in California. And this data is available for the public to access and download and use as needed. So in summary, you guys learned, so there are two reporting efforts. So the ongoing reporting, which is due by June 15th and December 15th of each year. And that includes the total funding approved in the reporting cycle, community engagement questionnaire, public meetings, education events, gallons of water provided for those interim replacement type projects, grant application assisted / work plans completed, priority population GIS locations, qualifying low-income household counts, and GHG impacts. And the second item there is the actual job reporting, which is due by December 15th each year. And the caveat there is for projects that are over $1 million and for subcontracts that are 100,000 and more. So your State Water Board project manager will contact you at the end of each reporting cycle to request the needed information. So this presentation hopefully helped you guys to understand some of those items that are required and why they're required to be collected. Some of the reference materials we have available are, the GHG Benefit Calculator tool. You could access that by clicking on the link, actual job reporting template. And then we do have some instructions that we could send out, and as well as example for jobs reporting. And then there's a hyperlink for California Climate Investment Priority Population Map, which shows all the disadvantaged communities to determine your priority population status for your projects. So that kind of concludes my presentations. I want to open it up to any questions there are.
Yeah, thank you, Harish, for a really good presentation. It was a very informative and did a great overview of the reporting. Looks like there is one question from Jeremy. He asked, did you say that the recordings and slide PDF will be shared with attendees? Yes, Jeremy. The recording slide PDFs will be shared with all the attendees. And we have another question from Jerry. His question is, does that GHG benefit tool take into account scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions, or what should be the boundaries of our emission tracking?
I'm not familiar, to be honest, with this scope. Maybe if you could clarify a little bit on that, I could reach out to CARB and get an answer for you. Not an expert, sorry, much as I like to be. Oh, so I think it's just direct emissions. If there's a direct, so for hauled and bottled water projects, we collect information for the hauling of water. So direct emissions from the diesel trucks or what have you. Yeah, we haven't. So your next you type for so electricity use would not count. We don't. Our calculator does not estimate electricity use per second.
Yeah, looks like if you just reiterated that, we'll send a copy out with presentation slides and other documents in the chat. Does anyone else have any questions for Harish? I'll take the silence as a no. Well, thank you again, Harish, for a great presentation. Again, really appreciate you taking time to present on the GGRF reporting. And I will hand it over to Ibing to go over some announcements and to close out today's training.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our training. We have the next training scheduled for July 21st, which is a Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. And that training will cover the urgent drinking water needs program. And we will be sending out some meeting appointments to all the TA provider contacts for some trainings that we have scheduled through the end of October. Again, I encourage you to please fill out the training evaluation form. It is now active. You can fill it out today, so you don't forget. And because we do welcome your input and your suggestions on how we can make improvements, training topics. We're always looking for training topics and to improve the training series. A copy of the presentation slides, some resources that Harish has made available, and a link to the recording will be provided later today. And the evaluation form will be open for 2 weeks. And again, thank you for your time and participation. If you happen to remember or think of a question later, please send it our way. We can work on getting an answer for you, and we'll share that question answer with the entire group. Looks like there's one message here. Oh, great. Thank you, Michaela, for sharing the link to the evaluation form. Again, thank you, everybody, for your time, and have a great 4th of July.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.